Hello everybody, this is Rudra Pradhan here. Welcome to Engineering Econometrics, and today we will start with the unit 2, that to the use of spreadsheet as per the requirement of engineering econometrics. And this is the second lecture in the unit 2, and in the first lecture we have already discussed the kind of data, the use of data, and that to how to use Excel for reporting the data and creating a kind of structure through which you can do the data analysis. In this lecture specifically we will highlight more something more about the Excel functions to report the data, transfer the data, and prepare a kind of structure through which you can do the data analysis more effectively, more efficiently, and as per the particular requirement. So, accordingly, so the highlight of the lecture will be like this. So, the specifically the kind of use of Excel functions specifically in the last lectures in fact we have discussed something related to the structure of Excel, how to create Excel file, how to open the Excel file, how to copy, how to paste, how to save, how to transpose, how to transfer. So many features are there, and so far as engineering econometrics is concerned, so it is the the basic requirement is the data analysis, means that is one of the major part of this engineering econometrics process, and until unless you know the kind of Excel requirement or the functionality of Excel, so you may not be in a position to analyze the data perfectly, because some of the sophisticated softwares needs data structuring, data transformations. So, Excel is the first and kind of spreadsheet where you can report the data and then transfer or structure the data as per the particular technique requirement and the kind of engineering problems requirement. So, in response to last lectures, the way we have used the Excel structures like opening file, saving file, importing file, exporting file. So many features are there, and once you know all these features, then you will get something positives how to go ahead with data analysis. And in the Excel sheet we have two different parts altogether, and that is the data analysis package, and that too the use of statistics and the use of mathematics. So that means we have a couple of statistical functions and we have couple of mathematical functions in the Excel spreadsheet. So once you know all these details, it will be very easier for you to solve some of the problem as per the particular engineering requirement. Of course, we will use some of the advanced softwares like Gradle, SAS, Stata, R, MATLAB, and the basic operations the kind of homework or the kind of examples you can actually report and do this kind of structuring, and for that Excel is very handy. And once you very familiar with Excel, then the use of other softwares may not be very difficult, because some of the software, statistical software or econometry softwares are very complex, and sometimes you may face difficulty to understand and the kind of reporting and the way of doing the data analysis. So if you are acquainted with the Excel sheet, then it will be very it will create a easy path for you to use the advanced software for your engineering econometrics problem requirement and the data analysis requirement. So in this lecture specifically we like to know some of the Excel functions, and through which we can actually structure the data in a more effective way, more efficient way. So let us see here the kind of structure what we can do in the process. And basically we will do some kind of demos, then the nature of Excel function, then I will let you know something related to data analysis, Toolpak, and then various operations and Microsoft Excel basics, and then the kind of some of the Excel operations. So, there are two things in the engineering econometrics problems or something, right, the analysis of engineering problems. So far as a engineering econometrics is concerned, what I have already mentioned, data analysis is one of the major what we can say organ. So, when we go for data analysis as per the particular engineering econometrics requirement, so by default we have two different structure altogether. In one particular structure it is called as a quantitative data analysis, another structure is called as a qualitative data analysis. But qualitative data analysis, the structure is which we have already discussed some way. That is some of the engineering problems where you may not have any idea about the variable specification, the kind of information which you need for the kind of analysis. But qualitative data analysis structure is you try to find out process through which the particular problem can be quantified with the help of some qualitative variables, and then we should get to know how these qualitative variables can be quantified in the form of coding or something like that. So, then ultimately the qualitative problems or qualitative information can be quantified. Then ultimately at the end of the day, so we do data analysis, and that too the kind of structure called as quantitative data analysis. So, that is how knowing quantitative data analysis is twin advantages. So, whether it is a quantitative problems or qualitative problems, ultimately you are supposed to do the data analysis to get more insights and better way of explorations, better way of investigations, better way of kind of experimenting the things. So, that is how it is a mandatory to know the data analysis package, whether it is a kind of Excel or it is the kind of any softwares like eViews, Microfit, MATLAB, etc. So, the thing is that you should know the mode or the kind of infrastructure through which you can do this a particular data analysis. So, let me highlight something related to quantitative data analysis here. First of all, we are in the process of spreadsheet use, and that to the use of Excels for data reporting, data structuring, and data transformations. So, in sum, Excel includes large number of tools, and that can be used for data analysis. It contains more extensive functions where it has both mathematical functions and statistical functions. I will show you the kind of Excel spreadsheet, and I will also give you the hint where the mathematical functions are there and what are the contents under the mathematical functions, and what is the statistical functions and what are the contents under the statistical functions. In fact, if you open simply Excel spreadsheet and if you click the data, by default mathematical functions and statistical functions will be there. So, mathematical functions like how to calculate a particular value. For instance, let us say there is a equation y equal to x, x plus b, where x is available and a is available and b is available. Then how to get y value with the help of x, a and b. So, now if you have a spread heavy data set, that means this size of the data is very vast. So, manually you cannot do. So, you just enter the kind of process, then Excel will help you just give the command. So, then automatically it will generate spreadsheet for you as per the particular information and the kind of particular requirement. So, it is a kind of infrastructure, and it will help you or monitor you as per your requirement. So, the spreadsheet needs some kind of command from you, how to use, how to process, and what is your kind of requirement. So, mathematical functions, statistical functions will be like that only. For instance, in the statistical functions you need actually reporting of mean, or you need reporting of maximum value or minimum value, something like that. And in the mathematical functions you can calculate square root of the particular data, or something kind of square of the particular data, log of the particular data. So, these are all the kind of transformation and structuring. So, you need to do through Excels. Of course, some of the software can do all the same operations, but Excel is much which what we can say that it is more user friendly, and some of the softwares it is not so user friendly. You need to understand the software very perfectly, can do the analysis, but Excel is so user friendly. So, you just enter and give the command, automatically it will come. So, that means technically compared to different statistical and econometric softwares, Excel, the understanding of Excel and the use of Excel is very easy. And sometimes I can say that or I can recommend that this is the mandatory kind of requirement for other softwares. If you do not understand the entry of data, this the structure of the data in Excel, then I am very sure you will face lots of difficulty to operate some of the advanced tools like SAS, Stata, eViews, Microfit, CATS, RADS, etc. So, technically, so it is easy, means it is better to know this particular spreadsheet, and then the kind of its operations. So, they are used to carry out specific data manipulations like say including statistical tests. For instance, what I have mentioned. So, there are two operations, mathematical functions and there are statistical functions, and we will carry out some kind of data manipulation, means data structuring, restructuring, data transformations. So, that is how we use the term called as a data manipulation, and including some of the statistical tests, and some of the examples like reporting of average, count means number of items, count if the conditional kind of for instance, how many items above than average, how many items below than average, how many items compared to some range. So, then maximization, minimization, spread of the series and variation of the series, and so and so on. So, that means technically it has many more features which you can have here, and that is very essential and very useful for data analysis, and that to the use of econometric tools or econometric softwares for solving some of the engineering problems. So, technically, so we like to know all these things. So, one of the thing is data analysis Toolpak in the Excel. So, mathematical functions, statistical functions are separate entity altogether, but in addition to that we have a package called as a data analysis Toolpak, and another package is called as Excel Start. So, both are very very much mandatory and very useful for the data analysis. Some of the simple engineering problems you can do through data analysis Toolpak, and some of the complex problems and the complex advanced tools can be solved through Excel Start. So, that means Excel spreadsheet has a data analysis package. So, one is called as a data analysis Toolpak, that is simple to understand, simple to work out, and similarly we have a Excel Start which can be also user friendly, and some of the problems can be analyzed through Excel Start. So, what will it do once we have some kind of engineering problems which will start after one more unit, where we can use some of these tools, and then we can use some of the advanced econometric tools to solve the engineering economic problems. Once we start some advanced statistical package to solve some of the engineering problems, that time you can get to know the beauty of this Excel, means knowing the functions and the kind of functionality of Excels for the data operations or data analysis. So, it includes the extensive function like statistical functions, and very useful for solving engineering econometrics problems. Like some of the Excel functions are like this, minimum to find out minimum of this particular series. Of course, If you are if means if you have no idea about statistics or something basic mathematics, then knowing all these terms may be a little bit difficult, but these are all what we can say that basics for engineering econometrics, or whether it is a kind of knowing the Excel spreadsheet or solving some of the engineering problems. Now and nowadays whenever you talk about any kind of engineering problems, and there is the reporting of the data to the engineering problems corresponding to some of the decision variables, and knowing all these items, these are the basic items, or what we can call as statistical indicators or mathematical indicators, through which you can analyze the engineering problems and predict the engineering problems as per the particular objectives and the kind of requirement. So, if you have no idea about the basic maths and basic stats like minimum of the series, maximum of the series, sum of the series, average, count to if. So, you just you assume that so these are all basic requirements, and you are bound to know all these things before you go to the advanced data analysis for the engineering econometrics problem and the kind of requirement. So, obviously, so you are supposed to know all these things, and I will show you in the Excel functions how you can operate all these things with a kind of a spreadsheet. Let us say that this is a kind of spreadsheet, and in this case you will find here this is a some of the engineering reporting, and you can say that this is a completely operational management problems or operation research. So, where it is a reporting of suppliers informations and the kind of order information, and where you will find the suppliers informations are here, and there are different purchase orders or different kind of suppliers, and all are coded or something item wise reporting or something like that, and the item cost, item quantity, cost per orders, and you see here what is the beauty of the kind of Excel use. So, for instance, just we can report the order quantity, and yes, you can you can report all these order quantity in a kind of plain papers, but reporting in reporting in Excel has a kind of multi use or multiple benefits, because this will be generating process through which we can calculate some of the indicators through which that the operational management can be effectively you can say analyze, and in the same times it may be useful for some of the other operations like engineering econometrics or engineering statistics, something like that. And here you see here whatever I have discussed, the kind of indicator like minimum, maximum, sum, average, count to if, and it is like that So, for instance, so let us just what we can do, let me clear this. So, let us we take consideration of one particular item quantity. So, that means here lots of informations are there, and so far as the data part is concerned. So, this can be a data reporting, this can be a data reporting, and this can be data reporting. So, this is the cost items, and this is the quantity items, and this is the cost per order. So, that means, so these are all orders, then you just divide, then automatically you will find cost per order. And what is happening here, suppose the cost is reporting for some of the orders here, order numbers. So, there are around 8 different orders numbers. So, that means, if you know how many such orders, so you just put count. Okay. So, just indicate for instance, this is count B4 to B97. So, that means, so this is what actually a B4. So, this is what actually B4 you see here row wise and column wise information. So, this is column B. So, B information, and this is row. So, B4 means indication is like this. So, now this is the starting B4, and then you will find a B 97. So, that means up to this one. So, that means we start with the B4, and then it is actually the series up to B97. So, that means in between some series are there, we hide it actually, otherwise we cannot visualize here, but that does not mean that it will erase completely, it will be there. So, when you give the command, so automatically software has the beauty or Excel has a beauty to recognize and report you as per your particular requirement, and that particular reporting will be very correct and very perfect also. So, now suppose B4 to B97. So, you need to know how many such order numbers the that is count. So, if you give the kind of structure, then by default you will get the numbers 94. So, that means there are 94 orders, that is the count, because here you cannot just forget about, let us say this series is not available. So, that means only these codings are there. So, if these codings are there from just in a kind of box. So, manually or by default you cannot say that this is the 94 numbers or 100 numbers, something like that. So, so obviously you have to count 1, 2, 3 like this, or else you just give the command and get the quick answers. So, that means for a kind of big data or something complex kind of problems where the objective is very complex and these are all basics, and for that you should not spend unnecessary time. So, you can just use the Excel, and then what are the basic requirements, you can get the informations very quickly. So, so once you get means you want to know the number order quantity. So, you just give the count and then indicate the first entry and last entry. So, it will give you the exact answers. Similarly, you have the reporting from B4 to B97, that is what we are reporting here, B4 to B97. So, that means B4 to B97 is the entry. So, now so this is a particular data, and that too for order number. So, so order number, it is actually coding here, and here other operations you may not actually get perfectly, but for that for instance, let us say minimum, maximum, sum, for that we need to have data like this. It should be numbers, but here there are numbers, but in addition to that there is a kind of symbol. So, that means this is actually coding order numbers. This itself will not give some kind of data analysis or something kind of big inference, but it will give you sample specification altogether. But ultimately, when you talk about the data and the data analysis, so then so this can be a variable, this can be a variable, this can be a variable, and this can be a variable. So, that means in the usual Excel reporting, you will find complete informations, that is what the kind of requirement of engineering econometrics. So, you give all kind of entry or all kind of specification, so that anybody can go through this particular spreadsheet, they can easily understand the reporting, and they may be in a position to analyze as per the particular requirement. So, now this is the first hand information of this operation management, but ultimately when you talk about data analysis or engineering econometrics, so the route will be start from here. So, what are the so means technically when you talk about data analysis or engineering econometrics, so you must have specific objectives. So, corresponding to the objective and the kind of data analysis requirement, so you have to pick up which particular variable out of this reporting, and how these variables or how these particular data can be used for further processing as per the data analysis requirement and the engineering econometrics requirement. So, that is why you have to understand clearly all these things. So, now for instance, these are all reporting. So, the numbers minimum, maximum, sum, average, count, countive. So, that means these are all some kind of Excel indicator, or which you may call as statistical indicator or mathematical indicators to give some kind of information to these problems, which can be very relevant for analyzing some of the engineering issues. So, now let us take a case of cost, quantity, and cost per order, something like that. So, now this is a cost. So, you can find out so many orders are there, and yeah, you will find very interesting in the engineering. So, when you are having orders, different orders, and your duty is take the order and fulfill these orders, then supply accordingly. So, that means when taking the order and supplying the materials. So, by default it is not actually free of cost. So far as management is concerned or engineering is concerned, nothing is free lunch, you must have cost, and then ultimately you have a different orders, and I am very sure every order cost may not be same. So, there is a high chance that the order cost will be different. So, now in case the order cost is same, then engineering econometrics by default will not work. So, there is no necessity. So, that means the requirement of engineering econometrics for a particular variable or for a particular data sheet, that there should be some kind of variation. So, you need to know why this variation is happening. So, the rule of the engineering econometrics is to predict and forecast these variations as per the particular engineering requirement. But in the first instance, if the reporting says that there is no variations, then I am very sure there is no such requirement of data analysis and no such requirement of using engineering econometrics. So, that is why you must be very careful how to understand this kind of problem, and then you have to use this as per the particular engineering requirement. So, now in this case what I have mentioned that if the cost is same or quantity is same, then the data analysis or engineering econometrics will not work properly. So, if you look this spreadsheet, and if you look this spreadsheet for this cost is a variable here, quantity is also variable, and cost per order is also variable. So, now if you look this data sheet, or means if you look these data for these particular variables, you will find these reportings are not uniform. For instance, if it is 3.00, 3.00 for all entries for all orders, then this particular variable or this particular information for these variables may not be very handy for the data analysis, for the engineering econometrics to solve some of the engineering objectives or engineering problems. So, be ensure or be careful that when you are analyzing any engineering problem with the help of data for the decision variable. So, the information should have some kind of variations. If it is uniform reporting, then this particular spreadsheet or this particular data for any decision variable, even that variable is very important, may not be very useful for getting any kind of new inference or new insights as per the particular engineering. So, you must be very careful how you have to analyze this kind of structure to and the use of this particular data and the kind of analysis. So, that means first of all what is the item you are targeting, and what kind of statistic or statistical indicator or mathematical or mathematical indicators you can report to work out all these things. For instance, in this case the issue is that means the issue which I have raised, that the data information or data reporting should be actually not uniform. So, since it is not uniform, so that means we are in right track to do the data analysis and then look for the look as per the objective requirements or engineering requirements. But now suppose you like to know something average of this cost for these orders 94 orders, and what is the quantity of orders, average quantity of the order, what is the average cost per orders or something like that. Then some of these cost, some of these quantity, what is the maximum order, order quantity, what is the minimum order quantity. So, all these specification you are supposed to know. If you until unless you know all these details, you may not be in a position to predict your operations or something. You cannot forecast something the kind of requirement. So, that is how you should know how you have to report and how to understand, how to analyze or something like that. So, proper reporting means there is a need of structured kind of reporting, so that anybody can understand, even layman can understand yes, this is what the data and this is how the data gives the kind of message. The way we are putting in the physical sheet. So, we same thing we will report in a kind of an Excel sheet, that is called as what we will call as it's a kind of hard information and soft information. So, the reporting of soft informations is very multiple use in fact So, just you import export or something do kind of transformation. So, many things you can do actually. Now, if you have a physical sheet, manually everything you have to do and report, but here just give the command and if you just do for one particular row and one particular column, and then automatically give the command, it will be available for other rows and other columns as per the particular requirement and the kind of needs or the kind of data analysis requirement. So, that means what I can say that this very handy how you have to use these operations, and so that means what I have mentioned these are all various ways to report the kind of structuring, and for instance I will give you the kind of examples. So, what I have mentioned that in the Excel spreadsheet you have mathematical function, you have statistical functions, and as per the particular requirement you have to just give the command, pick up the particular indicators, then solve the problems as per the objectives and the kind of requirement. For examples, we have the kind of lots of engineering analysis or the financial analysis or operational analysis. So, here some of the things are like that we have a called as a financial modules in the Excel spreadsheet, where some of the engineering problems. So, the need of financing or the need of reporting, the need of financial analysis are very much essential, and in fact the use of Excel help you lot to get all these inference and the kind of requirement. And the excellent example is the kind of what is called as project valuations or the kind of capital budgeting, something like that. So, the kind of project valuation is when you do the kind of business or the kind of operations, any kind of engineering, and you are doing something like that. So, there is a cost and there is a kind of returns or something called as revenue. So, now when you do something else, so obviously it is not free. So, there is a money involvement, and the amount of money you put in that particular operation is called as something called as cost. So, now when you are putting money, it is a kind of investment. So, when you are doing the kind of investment, you are expecting there should be a kind of return. So, so that means any kind of engineering problems, and within a particular engineering problems there may be some of the means different problems altogether, but any kind of problems or any kind of issues you can target. So, obviously there is a kind of investment and there is a kind of returns. So, we like to check how is the balance sheet altogether. So, here means usual requirement, because engineering itself is a kind of business. So, when you are doing a kind of engineering business, so obviously you have to see how much you are putting the money and how much you are getting out of it. So, ultimately what is the net results or net in your basket. So, the need is actually your return should be more than your kind of investment, not necessarily, but obviously the expectation should be like that and the operation should be like that, or the kind of planning must be like that. Even if are not coming something called as positive, still this will give you some kind of path to think how you have to actually transfer the positive things or positive outcome to your investment plan for a particular engineering problem. For instance, the classic example is a kind of a component called as NPV. So, when we are talking about the kind of project valuation or engineering valuations, then obviously there is a cost and there is a return, and the balance is called as the something called as profit or the kind of extra returns or net return. And there are many ways you can analyze this particular investment in the return or something called as cost and revenue. So, there are many different technical components are there, engineering components are there, through which you can analyze the problems as per the particular requirement. So, NPV is a kind of component which can help you to go for engineering valuations or financial valuations or operational valuation. And the thing is that means this is a kind of component where you will find when you put the money, it's not kind of one time or 1 hour kind of investment or 2 hours kind of investment or 1 day investment or 1 year investment. Sometimes some of the bigger kind of problems when you talk about big data, something like that. So, it should be long term objective or long term investment. So, obviously, when you are putting the money, so the return will be coming over the years, and then the problem complexity will start increasing. So, when you are doing a kind of 1 day business or 1 day investment and 1 day returns, then the situation is very simple and it is very easy to calculate, and there is no extra the complexity and extra understanding is not required. But when you are putting a money for 10 years or 50 years or 100 years down the line, so that times you will find many other things come into the pictures. In that case, Excel will help you how you have to calculate, integrate all these things, and do the kind of final balance sheet altogether. And manually or theoretically you cannot just analyze, because some complex problems, when a particular variable having 100 years plan, and then a particular variables within 100 years, there are many other integrations with other variables, other requirement, costing, something like that. So, then that means technically what I like to say that the complexity will be very high. So, when the complexity is very high, that times, so you need actually something called as data analysis or something technical help, how to streamline the process and then come with a kind of outcome or analysis through which you can analyze the problems as per your requirement. So, that means technically what I like to say that Excel spreadsheet has a lots of positives or some kind of beauty through which some of the engineering problems can be analyzed very effectively. So, that is why it is mandatory that you should know the use of Excel and the kind of operation of Excel to solve some of the engineering problems. We will stop here, and in the next lectures we will continue from this particular component. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.